They killed your sons, your brother, and your friends. Then they came and burned your tents. Oh, what courage you did show, even as those fires glow. To Yazid's palace were you dragged with our sick imam, who was bound. Ya Zainab, oh Ya Zainab, face to face with Yazid, you said, how dare you treat the Ahlul Bayt so bad, yet Yazid said so very glad. Your role was clear, there was no choice to save Islam, you used your voice. Oh Ya Imam, oh Ya Hussein, oh Ya Zainab. Salawat.
Did anyone else want to present before we begin our program, or like to share?
Brother Minal, you want to say something 5 minutes? Brother Minal represented the Shia community in IUPUI, explaining to them what is the Hajj, how we do it, and all that. And there were some representatives of Ahl Sunnah also there. Ahlul Bidah. So they were there too. So I think we should utilize the skills here, especially when English matters. So if you want to speak about your experience over there, please with the chef in the You don't have to stand. You don't have to stand. You can sit and move.
Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah, as Herbai mentioned, I only did a little bit. I was just representing and went to discuss my experience about the Hajj. It was a really nice gathering. It was in the university, and it was in a class that they were studying religious studies. So they had a few people. They had someone from the Jewish faith. They had a brother from Ahl Sunnah, and then they had another professor over there. And then and the way it worked out was really good, because the brother from our Sunni brother, he kind of talked about a lot of the manasik, the kind of the practical things that we do in the Hajj. And then I focused on the spiritual side of Hajj. And I'm sure those who have been for Hajj, it's a very spiritual experience. And inshallah, those who have not been, may Allah give you the opportunity to go. But the one thing that I remember saying to them, that the way I think about the Hajj when I did it, was I think about it like if you imagine that someone tells you that they're going to send you on a vacation. They're going to give you about $8,000 to $10,000, and they say, okay, I'm going to send you on a vacation. This is the money you'll need for the vacation. And when we see these ads, we get spam and we get these vacation ads on our internet, on our email. They're always advertising. They show you the really nice pictures, the beaches or the mountains. This vacation, the ad says 5 nights. You're going to be sleeping with probably 5 other people in the same room. You're not going to be carrying a lot of clothes. You'll just be wearing 2 pieces of cloth, a white cloth on the top and one on the bottom. You probably will not sleep very well, because some people are snoring, other people are walking in and out, so it'll be very difficult to sleep. You're probably not going to eat very well, because you're always trying to figure out where to go or how to go and try to stay with the groups. It's going to be very difficult. You're going to probably end up having bad body odor. You're going to be smelling a lot. And you start describing this vacation, and it's describing for you everything that you're going to deal with. How many people would still want to go on a vacation like this? So I asked the class that question, and obviously no one put up their hands. So then I asked them a question, and this is how I think about it, right? We know that, alhamdulillah, we're in a place where to earn, inshallah, the money to go for Hajj, for some of us, it's not very difficult. We save for a little while and we can go. But there are places around the world where people spend an entire lifetime trying to accumulate money to go for Hajj. There are people who, they will sell all their belongings because they just go for this one journey of Hajj. And of course, to make sure that their families are provided for. So I told them, if you can put yourself in their shoes and say that despite all these requirements and all these experiences, they still do all this to accumulate that amount of money to go for Hajj, then you know what it means to go for Hajj. Then you have understood the true meaning of Hajj. Because Hajj is not something that you do for your body, right? You do it for the soul and for your spirit. And we all know, and I'm sure Sheikh can explain a lot better than I, that the human being, what makes the human being a perfect creation of Allah is not his hands and his feet and the ability to speak. It's the soul, it's the ruh that Allah said, وَنَفَخْتَ فِيهِ مِنْ ruh. I breathe it into him of myself. That is why we go for Hajj, it's to elevate our soul and our spirit, and to get that soul, the difficulties we put our body through are good for the soul. And we come out of that experience, Allah says, when you leave Arafah, you're like, your sins are cleansed like a newborn baby. So I explained to them in this way that, a lot of times we live in a society that emphasizes so much on the body, right? And Sheikh explained yesterday very well how the body is so, we try to do all these things. When you want to work out, you push the body so hard. You try to, to build that muscle to get to your potential. Not your capacity, but your potential. The soul also has a potential, and that's what Hajj is one of those things. It's to bring out the true potential of the soul, inshallah. So that's the little that I shared, and it was really good, and alhamdulillah, if you guys ever get a chance, next time it would be nice to have a few of us go together as a group, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Salawat Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Salli ala Muhammad.
Alhamdulillah. I'm reminded by a saying from Imam Ali and Najibullah. He said that knowledge which remains only on your tongue is very superficial. The intrinsic value of knowledge is that you act upon it. A lot of times common knowledge isn't common practice, but that's why we come to these occasions to gain knowledge so we can apply it. So inshallah, let's welcome Sheikh Noorudin with a loud salawat.
Salli ala Muhammad. Please Salli ala Muhammad wa alayhi Muhammad. If everybody, even all the kids and adults who don't need a back support, if we can move in the front, that will be better. Nare Haydari! Ya Ali!
Okay, also, if there are any mobile devices, if you're not taking notes, that's the only exception. And if you're taking notes, you want to see your notes afterwards. So inshallah, it's a great saying by Mark Twain. He said you had 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth, which implies pay your attention to what's going on around you and focus your attention without using your mouth. Salawat Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين والصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد والصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. وأما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المتين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولنبلونكم بشيء من الخوف والجوع والنقص من الأموال والأنفس والثمرات وبشر الصابرين صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Greetings to all of you, to mu'mineen and mu'minat worldwide, to our leadership, Maraji Taqleed, Maqam Mu'azzam al-Ahbari. This evening that we are continuing this series of lectures that we had begun last night concerning tests. Tests is something important for us to go over. and to become acquainted with the nature of the tests of Allah that we receive, why we're tested by Allah, how we can pass these tests, and what the aim and the goal is of testing. You know, living in the West, especially, I just came from California a few weeks ago, you'd be surprised how many people are complaining of psychological problems. You go somewhere and you talk to people and you have people come up to you and say, I'm suffering. One sister came to me, she said, I've been to 3 psychologists and all of them tell me that nothing's wrong with me. In fact, most of the time, what we're suffering from is not diseases of the psyche. It's not illness in our brain, illness in our mind. Most of the time what we're suffering from is diseases and illnesses that are in our heart. And so how is it that someone can go to a psychologist that they know that they have an anxiety disorder? They go to the psychologist tells them there's nothing wrong with you. Why? Because there's nothing wrong with you in your mind. Most of our illnesses that we're suffering from, bil khusus, and especially in the West, but this is generally speaking, human beings, most of us are not suffering from mental disorders. We're suffering from disorders of the heart, of the qalb. And the sicknesses that we're suffering from are not sicknesses of the mind or of the body, but illnesses of the heart. And this is why we try to emphasize that in America, while we need ahkam and fiqh, we need to know these things. We need to know some elements of aqidah, some elements of ideology, some elements of philosophy. These things are beneficial to us in our growth and our understanding of Islam. But by and large, what we need in America, what you and I need in our daily lives, what our family needs, what our communities need, is medicine for our hearts. This is a place in the West, it sucks the heart, it sucks the ruh right out of you. You go to work, and your whole life revolves around 40 hours or more a week. Then you have to balance work with family. And sometime in there we have to fit in spiritual growth. And so many of us are suffering not from physical ailments, not from mental ailments, but our heart is in need of medicine. And that's why we wanted to go over this particular topic. So last night we mentioned 2 aspects that stand behind the philosophy of why Allah tests us. And we had mentioned number 1 from Khutbat al-Qasa in Nahj al-Balagha, Sermon 192, that Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam, he says that Allah tests us, why? إِخْرَاجًا لِلتَّكَبُّرِ, to take out takabbur and arrogance out of our heart. To remove arrogance from our heart. And we had mentioned this last night. Arrogance, it is not one of many conditions that we suffer from. It's not some condition that some people suffer from and other people don't. Arrogance is something that affects everyone. Everyone is afflicted with arrogance. To some degree, to some extent. And if we just look inside of ourselves and pay attention to our own hearts and our own souls, we'll see that we also have a little touch of arrogance in us also. This is the major akhlaqi problem that faces us. Arrogance. Because if our hearts is filled with love of ourselves, where does the love of Allah fit in? I know a brother, very good brother, but he's one of those brothers that needs his nails done. He's one of those brothers that's got to get his toes done. He comes to my mechanic shop, he asks me, do you have any baby wipes here? Brother, this is a mechanic shop. What are we going to do with baby wipes and lotion here? It's not surprising that the brother has a hard time with marriages. And you'll find people who are arrogant, people who are self-centered, people who only think of themselves, then they can't think of a wife. They can't think of a husband. If arrogance and self-conceit and self-love fill up our hearts, there's no room for love of anything else. And this is one of the major diseases that faces human beings. And that's why Allah, He tests us to remove takabbur from our hearts, to remove arrogance from our hearts. And we had made this clear last night, we want to reiterate it again. Arrogance is not some strange disease, abnormal disease that we suffer from. It's perfectly natural that we should fall into this disease. Like someone who eats too much, they're going to get some disease related to that, diabetes or obesity or something. Arrogance also is like that. You see, we had mentioned it last night, human beings, our source is greatness. Allahu Akbar. Allah is the greatest. Now when we are created by Allah, our source is greatness, so naturally inside of ourselves, we're searching and seeking for greatness. In our life, we want greatness. No one gets married, and when they decide to get married, they say, you know, I want that my husband should be falaj, should be crippled. No one gets married and says, I prefer a woman who is just having one eye and no ears. No, when we look for something, we want greatness. We want perfection. It's natural in us that we're seeking that. When you go and buy a car, you don't tell the car dealer, give me the rustiest piece of junk that you have on the lot. No, you go there and you look for a nice car. All of us are seeking greatness. All of us are searching for perfection. In this quest for greatness, in this quest for perfection, we can lose sight of the fact that Allah is the greatest. And then we start to make mistake and think that we're great. And this is the seed of arrogance, how it gets planted in our hearts. So one thing that's very important is tests. Because tests, they break this idea that we're great. And it forces us, if we're mu'mineen, to go back to our prayer mat, to make our du'as, to read our Quran, to remind ourselves that the true source of greatness is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's vitally important that we take advantage of tests in that way. See them as an opportunity to return to Allah. That's what Allah wants from us when we're tested, when we face hardship, when we're squeezed by the pressures of life. He wants us to take refuge in Him, inshallah. Another reason last night, another aspect of testing that we had mentioned concerning why Allah tests us, the philosophy behind testing, is that Allah wants to expose to us our potential. And this is very important. Without tests, without hardship in life, the human being does not grow. So I asked this question last night and people got nervous. I'm going to ask it again just because I like to get people upset. Is there a doctor in the house? Last night I asked that question. Someone said, why, Wayla? Brother ate the food and feels sick now. No, that's not the reason. Doctors will tell you the greatest advances that have ever been made in medicine is because of war and disease. You look at what's going on now in the world, like Ebola. This Ebola epidemic that they had in Africa most recently, only in this last epidemic were they able to create a vaccine for Ebola. Every Ebola epidemic before this, there was no vaccine. And it takes the hardship of disease to push the doctors and the scientists to create a vaccine. It's war that creates progress in medicine also. You know, soldiers that are wounded on the battlefield today have a very high likelihood of surviving their injuries. Whereas if those same injuries were inflicted on soldiers in the Vietnam era or the World War II era, they would have died. War, disease, pushes medicine and science forward. Why do we say this? Hardship is the place of growth for the human being. I mean, you can look at the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the creation of Adam, alayhi salatu wassalam, Now, as you all know, we don't, as Shias, we do not believe that Adam committed any sin when he ate from that fruit that Allah told him not to eat from. But why do we say that Adam did not make any sin? Allah gave him a command, and Adam disobeyed that command. If you disobey the command of Allah, isn't that a sin? Of course it is. However, in the case of Adam, and in the case of many times when we commit sins and mistakes unknowingly, not understanding the consequences, Allah does not call us to account for that. Same with Adam. Adam is created by Allah, educated by Allah. And after this education that Allah gives him, and it mentions it in Quran, Allah taught him the names, taught him all the names. And Mufassirin have discussed what were these names that were taught to Adam. Adam is educated, and then after the education, what happens when you go to school and you learn something? After you learn something in school, what do? They give you a test to find out, have you mastered the material? Adam is educated, and then Allah tells Adam, look, you see this garden here? Eat anything what you want in the garden except from this tree. Imagine Adam has been created, he's been educated, he has a free choice. But up until this point, Adam has never used his free will. Adam has never exercised that freedom that Allah gave him. The only way for Adam to understand the extent of this freedom, the consequences of freedom, is that he should be given this test. And Allah knew beforehand that Adam will not pass this test. But the test was not for Allah, the test was for Adam. Through this test, Allah now teaches Adam, Adam grows. And you see that after this, now Adam returns to Allah, as we all should do in our tests. Hardship, difficulty, tests is what caused the human being to grow. Brother gave the example this evening in his intro concerning exercise. When we work out, we go to the gym, we work out. It takes hard work to build muscles. You have to exert yourself. If you want something good, strong body, healthy body, it takes effort. It takes difficulty. Only in difficulty do human beings grow. And so one of the philosophies behind testing, Allah testing us in this life, is to expose to us our own potential. Right now, we think that I could never do that. I don't have the potential inside of me, the capacity inside of me to bear such a thing, until we're given that test. When we're given that test and we pass through that test, then we understand fully our own capacity. This is very important to understand. Finally, just to remind you lastly of one thing that we mentioned last night. A lot of times when we're tested, we think that we can't bear this test. This test is too much for me. I can't handle this test. And that is because Allah always tests us slightly above our isti'dad fi'li, our current capacity. He always tests us slightly above our current capacity so that we can grow. Through this test, then our capacity, our potential, our isti'dad bil-quwwa is exposed to us. And so we learn and we grow from that. This is a very important aspect of testing. Very elemental that we understand this, inshallah. Send a salawat and we'll begin for this evening. So tonight we want to go over some of the rules that will help us to really pass, not only pass our tests, but will make these tests that we get from Allah, anwa' mukhtalif, all of those different types of tests that we get. These rules that we go over this evening will make these tests, inshallah, easier for us to bear. So then, rule number one is to accept tests as a part of a believer's life. A lot of times, and especially when we live here in the West, those of us who are raised in the West, alhamdulillah, those who come from other countries and come here, Alhamdulillah, some of them don't have this problem. They understand that life is test, life is difficult, and this is what life is all about. This is how we're going to grow and develop. In the West, though, we've been trained that life should be a life of ease. Even our culture reflects that. You work 5 days, but people look at 2 days off like it's my right. I need Saturday and Sunday off. I need to rest. Or even retirement. People in America really think that I'm going to work until I'm 60 or 65, or if I have a government job till I'm 55 and retire early. You know, we want that life of ease and relaxation, and we're looking to avoid tests in our life. Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. During the time of Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, he heard about one of his companions, a very old man who was a farmer, and he had a little store where he sold his produce. And this man got to a certain age where he said, now I'm going to retire. I'm going to sell the store, and I'm going to rent out the farm, and I won't work anymore. I'll stay home and engage myself in ibadat. How many times have you and I thought like that? That, you know, I'm going to take some days off from work, I'm going to retire early, and I'm going to spend my days in ibadat. And this is the idea that we have. This idea is an un-Islamic idea. When Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam heard about this, he wrote a letter to his companion immediately. He said, I've heard that you're planning on selling the store and renting out the farm. And he says, don't do this. It will make your aql, your intellect, weak. Retirement is something that is unknown of in Islam. It doesn't exist in the mu'min's life. Even if you retire from one job, that means you go to work at another one. We don't have this idea that life should be easy, rahat. We should be able to put our legs up, sit under the parasol at a beach, listen to the sound of the waves. This is not what life is about. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests us to expose our capacity. And one of the rules of testing is that we should accept that test is a part of life. Don't try to avoid the test. Don't try to run away from the test. Many people try to do this. They try to avoid a particular test by doing some other khair, some other good deed. So they say, you know, I'm going to avoid this test and I'm just going to give some sadaqah. No. Don't try to avoid the tests of Allah. Don't run away from the tests that we encounter in life. We should accept that test is a part of life, an opportunity to us from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah cares about us and wants us to grow, inshallah. Salamat. There's a hadith al-Qudsi where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, by my greatness, I will remove everything from my servants until he realizes that I am his God. This is Allah's view of it. Allah says, I will continue to test you, even if it means taking everything away from you, so that we can come to the realization that Allah is the source. Allah is the aim. Allah is the goal. And these tests that we encounter in life, they're a perfectly natural part of life. Don't try to avoid them. Don't try to run away from them. Don't try to get away from them. This is life. And the sweetness of life is these tests that we encounter. We should look at tests as an opportunity and make progress and move forward little by little. Understand that Allah tests people according to their level, according to their maqam, according to their station in life. There's a story that they tell about two angels. They were sent on a mission by Allah. And they run into each other. These two angels meet up with each other. So one angel asks from the other one, he says, where are you going? What is the job that Allah has sent you to do? The angel says, Allah has sent me to assist a tyrant, a taghut, to catch a fish. There's this big fish that he wants to catch. Allah has sent me to assist him in catching that fish so that his fame will grow. The angel says, the other angel, he says, why would Allah send you to help a taghut, to help a tyrant, to gain fame? The angel says, because Allah wants to give him time to perfect his kufr, to perfect his disbelief. This is a test for this man.